Good episode? Can we say that was a good episode? Let's get into it. Acolyte, episode 5. Let's go. So out of all 5 episodes of The Acolyte, I think this is the best one. It has to be. Now, when I say that, I do think that episode 4 and 5 could have been put together, because if you watched my video last week, I kind of felt like the story wasn't really pushed anywhere and it was just kind of boring. It did feel like the middle of a movie and just really underwhelming. So when we got into episode 5, this was all of the action that I was hoping for in the last few episodes. And I really do think that 4 and 5 would have been great if you got to see them together. But I do think that episode 5 was the dopest one that we got for quite a few reasons. And I do think that those reasons are kind of shared for the most part around the internet. Now, do I think that this episode is a masterpiece? Absolutely not. But this episode did enough to regain my intrigue and interest into what was going on. So let's start with the most obvious positive of this episode, and that's the fighting choreography. This is probably the best fight choreography that we've gotten since Revenge of the Sith. Not to say that it is exactly up to par with the prequels, but it's the closest that we've got. The movements were very fast. It was very exciting. The way that Khmer, the way that he moves and the way that he uses his saber was crazy. And the kills that were in this episode were absolutely brutal and they were pretty dope. I think that this entire episode had a very dark feel to it. Obviously not pushing the boundaries, but it was darker than a lot of the stuff that we've gotten previously. And as somebody who likes the darker tones, even though Star Wars kind of stays away from it, doesn't really need to do it, I do enjoy the darker tones, and I thought this episode did a good job on executing that feel. Now, the dialogue of this episode, for the most part, regarding Khmer and what he was saying to like Soul and the Jedi, I think was actually well done. It was kept very vague, but you knew where he was coming from. You could feel his sense of pain and anger, frustration, and you could also feel the shock on the other side, more so on Soul's end of things. So when it came to the Jedi versus this Sith, I think that it was actually well done. It changes a little bit when we get to May and Osha, but we'll get to those. Soul remains to be a badass of the show. I really enjoy Soul and his camera time that he gets in this show. Episode 4, I did kind of critique that I felt like he was leaning a little bit too much on his attachment. But that's not to say that his performance wasn't great. Soul does a great job at just embodying this character, and he really just plays his heart out, and he's dope with a lightsaber, so that actually made it fun to watch. And I thought that it was interesting that we actually saw kind of a different side of Soul a little bit, maybe leaning on those attachments. Like I was saying in the review for the 4th episode, we saw him tap into his anger a little bit, and I thought that that was really interesting because it shows just how deep of a connection that he not only has for Osha, but even May. Now, I know a lot of y'all think Soul is in on the whole scheme and whatnot. I'm not convinced. I hope I'm right, but we're gonna see. Another part of this episode, and you're gonna have to forgive me for potentially being kind of dark about this. I'm happy those Jedi died, dude. Just for the sake of arguments, I'm glad that they got out of there. I was sad to see Jackie go a little bit. She really put up a battle. Daphne Keane did a great job at her saber combat, and you could tell the time and training that she put into this, it paid off because she looked badass taking on Khmer. Also, y'all know how I feel about Yord. I was not so disappointed that we weren't going to be getting any more Yord, but the way that he went out, dude, Khmer is a savage. And let me segue into that because as I mentioned in my last video talking about the 4th episode, Khmer was not a character that I really enjoyed. I thought he was kind of this little lackey, sarcastic, weak type of character, and I really wasn't feeling him. But let me tell you, his switch into this Sith is amazing. I forgot his name, but bro absolutely killed the role. When he's speaking, you can tell and you can see his mental instability. Like I was saying before, you can feel his anger, his pain, his frustration. His facial expressions just worked in so many ways and elevated what he was saying. Bro uses his eyebrows a lot and it's effective. He really embodied this evil character that was just savage and trying to get rid of these Jedi, and I thought he played it really well. I honestly can't lie to you, he's my new favorite character of the show. At first, I really wasn't feeling the costume. He kind of looked like a bobblehead to me, just a really big head and a small body. He really embodied what it meant to be this evil character. And even though it was a obvious revelation, I mean, there were rumors and speculation going on Twitter and just the whole internet talking about how it was going to be Khmer who was this Sith guy. I didn't want to believe it because of my reasons of not really liking him all that much, but it worked for me. The reveal worked for me. He did a great job, and bro is jacked as all hell. And as far as his costume, I actually think it looks better without the helmet and his little cape thing that he has over him, but it was done really well. I really like his character, and I'm very interested to see more on Khmer. Now, going into some of the things that I didn't like about this episode, I think I got to start with Amandla and her performance. And I don't know what it is, but I think since last episode, there has been a drop in her acting ability, or maybe it's the direction in which she was told to act. But something about it just feels very robotic, like she's reading a script. I can tell it doesn't feel real. I don't believe it as neither character, more so as May and the way she tries to play evil or sincere, but neither of the characters honestly won me over in this episode. Not to mention this character has become very, what's the word I'm looking for? No, it's not that. Get your mind out the gutter. Teeter-totter. It's like a seesaw. Like she's just up and down constantly. And I don't understand how this was okayed in the writing. She goes from being this very angry child to wanting to kill her sister because her sister is going to leave her. 16 years later, she's still upset, thinking that her sister's dead, wants to kill the Jedi. Then she finds out that her sister's alive within one episode, the end of 2, beginning of 4. And now all of a sudden she wants to turn herself in, do the right thing. And now she's trying to go against the Jedi again and asking Osha not to choose them over her, to following Soul in the ship. It just feels really weird, the flip back and forth. I don't understand the character in that aspect. I don't know what her motive is. I don't know what she's trying to do. I don't know where her allegiances lie. So that's a bit weird. I'm not really feeling the performance of these two characters as much as I did in the first and second episode, because I did like those episodes. And I thought that Amandla Stenberg's performance in both the first and second episode was fantastic as both characters. So I'm not sure what changed. Let me know if I'm the only one feeling that way, or if you're kind of feeling the same way about May and Osha. Another critique, and it's not really a critique, it's just now that we got the reveal with Khmer being the Sith, I have so many questions, because he himself didn't call himself a Sith. He just said that the Jedi would likely refer to him as that. I know that there's a lot of speculation going around thinking that Khmer might be a Knight of Ren. And while I'm not going to say that's not true, I'm honestly not too familiar with the Knights of Ren. I also just don't know, because I'm gonna nerd out a little bit, but I don't, my own personal perspective, don't view those who did not come from the Bane line as true Sith. That was kind of the whole point of the Bane trilogy, was a true Sith that dons the title of Darth. And now we don't know Khmer's Sith name. It seems that he's still trying to keep it under wraps and trying to hide his identity in that regard. So I'm not exactly sure how that might play out, but it just leaves a lot of questions, because is he a Sith? And if he is a Sith, is he a true Sith? And if he is a true Sith, who is his master? Who was his master? What's the end game that he has here? Because this is around the time of Plagueis and Tenebris. And while there's been a lot of people that said online that they wouldn't mind if they changed Tenebris or maybe even Plagueis into a human, I kind of have a problem with that. But I also don't see it being something that Disney wouldn't do, especially if you're trying to go the Tenebris angle and you can't really get the emotion and, you know, of a Biff, you know, it's just eyes looking at you. But if he is a Knight of Ren, then I really need to get my knowledge up, because that's actually one aspect that I really don't know nothing about. But it's really interesting, because again, if he is a true Sith and he is from the Bane line of Sith, and I kind of got that idea how he was kind of conveying to Soul that he wants a pupil, he wants a acolyte, somebody to teach what he knows. And he really was trying to pull the victim card, saying that they didn't allow his kind to exist, and he just not supposed to be here and whatnot, but it's just real interesting. I'm very interested in his story and where he comes from and what the end game and his goal is later, and if he is committed to the rule of two, which it kind of seems like. So with this episode, I kind of feel kind of like a 7 or 8. I thought this was a really good episode. I thought it was effective. I thought the combat was amazing. I thought the dialogue within those scenes of the combat, like Kamir talking to Sol and to May and to the rest of the Jedi, I thought that that was done and written really well. But the end of the episode kind of lost me a little bit as far as May and Osha and their conversation and what was going on and the performance that was given. So, I mean, you know, I said it last time, I'm still with the show. 3 out of 5 episodes I thought were pretty good so far. So we'll have to see how this lays out in the next 3 episodes. But please let me know what you think in the comments of this episode. What are some theories that you got going on? If you know anything about the Knights of Ren, game me up a little bit, because I am ashamed to say that I don't know much about the Knights of Ren. If you did enjoy this video, hit that like button. It's a huge help to the channel and I appreciate it. So thank you. Also, consider subscribing to the channel. That way you get updated when I put new videos out. I am looking this week to talk about some House of the Dragon episode 2 and also some movie news that we got going on, talking about some of the upcoming films and first looks that we've gotten, like Shrek 5 and the Superman suit that just got revealed. So keep an eye out for those. So thank you so much for giving me your time. I hope you're having a great day. Y'all be smooth. I'm out. Stay geeked up.